Hi, my name is Nikki Seward, and this video is being uploaded at the request of some North Delta landowners who are interested in the unaccounted water flow of the Delta and how it affects all of us in the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, and why the baselines for the water flow data for the Bay Delta Conservation Plan are based on incorrect and false information. I'm going to go through several little presentation graphics I've created for some of these presentations. This one just happens to be regarding actually Steamboat Slough flow, and but this graphic I presented a couple weeks ago, but a lot of people like the graphic, so I thought I'd start out by saying that this is Monday, May 20th. 2014, and again, this is about Georgiana Slough. This is part of my draft statements for the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, and just as a reminder, there are some other videos. It's related to unexplained gaps in water flow in March, actually in April, and actually going back a couple years now, I'm finding that there's unexplained exports and water flow in the North Delta that needs to be addressed in the computer modeling and in any final Bay Delta Conservation Plan documents. I already did a video talking about the data gaps on Steamboat and Sutter Slough. This is strictly going to be about Georgiana Slough as I move forward. So I'm going to use quickly, you can go back, you can go to snugharbor.net, which is my actually website, and go to my Bay Delta Conservation Plan comments page if you want to read more about this. This particular comment relates to Chapter 5, Section D, see the appendix regarding the in-delta water consumption and use. It's a computer model called DICU, D-I-C-U. And then also relates to Chapter 6 and Chapter 7, and actually relates to each and every one of the conveyance options if you want to know what it relates to. And what I found was that there's unexplained pretty substantial diversions from Georgiana Slough in April of each of 2014, 2013, 2012, and I'm going to show you how it appears that there's just these data gaps that are unexplained that appear to be a pretty substantial diversion. So you can find the screen prints yourself, and this PDF will be online so that you can go to this and click on things to find it yourself. Like, for example, you can click on this North Delta, water data gauge for USGS, and you can get to it, or CDEC, and get to the same gauge, and unless they've changed it in the last couple of days, it will show you the same data I'm showing you now. Let's start with the first graphic. I wanted you to understand that there are different organizations that are now tracking water rights and counting water rights, and the state required everyone that's diverting water to report it. And so they utilize that information to look at who is diverting water out of the Delta. And if you look at, that was through the Delta Plan, and you read the report, and they say, no, pretty much everybody that's diverting water in the Delta has the rights to do that. Well, the problem with it is that there appears to be a pretty major diversion off of Georgiana Slough that doesn't seem to show on either this area right in here, or let's go to one of the official, more official. This is the computer modeling, and the Delta Conservation, Bay Delta Conservation Plan. This came from Chapter 5, Section D, Attachment 2. And this in-delta water use, they use it to model inflow and export locations, flow control structures, impacts. They use this data for a lot of different things related to the computer modeling for the Delta, for salinity. It's a really important how much water flows in and out of the delta. So that's why it relates to the Bay Delta Conservation Plan. So I'm going to go on from here. This is an important one to recognize. So first of all, let's look at, this is a flow gauge from USGS, waterdata.usgs.gov, and go on, and it is a comparison of inflow into McCollum and out of McCollum actually, and Georgiana Slough. So this top one right here, and you can see this is the USGS number for Georgiana Slough. This green line right here, if you can see that, that is Georgiana flow. That's over 4,000 cubic feet per second flowing on Georgiana in April of 2014. You know, this they say we have a drought year, and yet there is this much water flowing into Georgiana and going down into the McCollum River to be exported to the south, because that's where all that water goes. Now, what do you see going on the McCollum? There is this period in time from about it actually starts around April 8th and it goes through to April 14th, and even though there's 4,000 cubic feet of outflow and this gauge is at the north end. You know what, I'm gonna go up here and show you where that gauge is on this map up here. This is Georgiana gauge right there. This is the McCollum gauge, and the water flows like this down Georgiana, and it goes like this, and there's a gauge here. And yes, there's other water flow that can come from this direction, and it can also go like this, but really this gauge should reflect at least the Georgiana flow in April of that 4,000 cubic feet per second. So let's keep going. So this is again in April 2014, and there is this gap. Where is this water going? And then you can see the raw data, and you'll find that there's actually backflow going on the McCollum, and backflow for some reason, because maybe tides or whatever, but it would not affect this outflow. So there's 4,000 cubic feet per second of water that's missing for quite a few days on Georgiana. And so I looked at, okay, let's just try and figure out, okay, how much does water is that? Just taking this block of information right here, you can compute taking cubic feet per second and converting it. Let's see, what does that say? Yeah, this shows where my comments are. You take that and you multiply it by how many days? Just 3 days. That was actually more water flow missing data is at least 4 days. But I took and I found that there was over 3 days 7,000 acre feet unaccounted for water. And when you take the value, if that was sold, if agricultural use value, it's over 1 million. But if you do the municipal residential rates, or maybe the fracking water rates, that's over 5,200 feet per 5,200 per acre foot. So that represents this right here, this turquoise box, is over $37 million worth of unaccounted for flow. So I thought that was kind of strange. I actually took a boat ride with several different people that are locals and others, and found that there's places where the potential exports happen that aren't reflected in those maps that show export locations or diversion locations. Anyway, it made me decide to go back and look at other years. And what did I find? In April of 2013, again, there is a big gap. This is Georgiana flow. Now, remember, we're supposed to be in 2014 in a huge drought. And you saw in April that 4,000 cubic feet per second of flow was going down Georgiana to somewhere. Now, this is April of 2013, and it's 2,000 cubic feet per second or more going on down. And here we have a gap again, a very similar gap. Where's that water going? Now let's go to 2012. And here we go again. In 2012, you know, the media says we have 3 years of drought, and yet in 2012, in April, you see that there is 6,000 cubic feet or more, going down to 4,000 cubic feet or more, flowing out. See how it goes? That's the flow at the north end of Georgiana, and then here is the flow on the McCollum, which is still a positive flow. Data gap here again. So why is there that data gap? Where is that water flow going? Is that counted in the computer modeling for the Bay Delta Conservation Plan? And I don't believe it is, which means the computer modeling needs to be redone accounting for that. However, maybe it does, and it's just another one of those when we find that the DWR either changes the chart or comes up with some logical or illogical, but they say it explains the situation. So I wanted to look at, okay, what are they using for Bay Delta Conservation Plan flow data? They're using from older years, so it can't possibly include that in Delta flow and use cannot possibly include 2014, 2013, 2012. So there is something very wrong in the flow calculations for the Bay Delta Conservation Plan. That information needs to be recalculated. So I wanted to show you another chart. This is from, let's see, a USBR presentation. And you know that if you look at the Bay Delta Conservation Plan export charts, they stop at 2009. They don't really want us to understand that there has been more water flow exported from the Delta in the last couple of years, and when we see all the degradation to the environment in Northern California, to our aquifers, are you in the areas around the Delta, you know, like above Sacramento and over on the east side over Napa, Sonoma, Marin? Are your wells going dry? Well, maybe it's because the water from the Delta, the water from the Sacramento River, which usually replenishes the Northern California aquifer, is being diverted instead. There has been more diversion ever historically. And so when your wells are going dry, that's why. The aquifer is not getting replenished. If the water quality in Northern California or the Bay Area goes down from the private wells, it's because the aquifers are not being replenished. This is 2011. This is a USB report that's not in the Bay Delta Conservation Plan because they don't want you to recognize this. Look how much has been exported in 2011. Be interesting to see 2012 and 13. So, given all of this, their company RMA, this is a computer model, and they also modeled for Georgiana Slough, and I wonder if it accounts for those data gaps on Georgiana Slough, that water that goes off somewhere. And I find that the reporting for the calibration for DSM2, which is one of the major computer modeling used for the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, uses Georgiana flows from 2002. So obviously those much larger exports that happened 2012, 13, 14, and probably earlier. I didn't go back any further due to time restraints. So in other words, the computer modeling does not reflect what's actually going on in the Delta. So the outcomes from those computer modelings actually don't reflect what really would happen. We're seeing what would happen. I'm going to go on. Let's see what happens when water is exported excessively on a slough like Georgiana. If you haven't been there by boat, it's beautiful. There's trees, old oaks. It's one of the original waterways, so it's been greatly improved by making it deeper for gravitational flow of the water to the export pumps. So where does the water go? This is from this website here. This is the California CDEC site. This is just one little section where you look at in this time frame on the 8th of April 2014, you see that water is flowing into Georgiana, but down at the bottom end you have the negatives, and that's because there's tides and it's backflowing into the Mokelumne. Where's this water going? It seems like something's being pumped out, and it's drawing even more water. You see this drawing in of water into the Mokelumne, like drawing it up towards Georgiana. So what happens to Georgiana when this kind of stuff goes on? Below where probably the water was being drawn out very quickly, you will find a very striking line where you've got dying oaks along the waterway, and you will see that the water on Georgiana is lower at times in April, and actually we saw it in May also, where the water is now below even the roots of the oak trees, and the oaks are dying. The oaks on the water side of Georgiana, lower Georgiana, are dying, and it's kind of very sad to see. Notice that on the land side of those same levees, they're not dying. So this isn't a moss or a bug or anything. This is strictly related to very quick drop of water flow in Georgiana, most likely, and then most likely that means water quality is being impacted on lower Georgiana. So none of this was reported as an impact on the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, and for a plan that's supposed to restore Delta environment. Note that basically everything north of Highway 12, or north and east, used to, before there was ever any conveyance of water away from the delta, there was tall trees, and it was beautiful, and along the natural levees, like Steamboat Slough had natural levees, lower Sacramento River had natural levees, and they had oaks and sycamores and trees like that. If what is actually happening on the ground now is so much water export that it's exposing the roots of the oaks and killing the oaks, how is that restoring the environment? How can they be killing the oaks of Georgiana and tell the people of California they are doing restoration? That is taking too much water away from Georgiana, and who's taking that water and how it impacts Georgiana is simply being ignored. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.